Hello, it is 8:02 sharp Central Time, and so it's time for us to get started. I'm Cameron. Thanks for joining on the Learn AVL Tuesday night webinar. I'll tell you a little bit about me and then set up the evening, and then we can get into it. I'm excited about what we're talking about tonight. Wandered up to the sound booth at my church when I was 12 years old. Had a great mentor there who taught me everything about audio and mixing. And then he was with me for about 3 years. And then he left and took another opportunity. The church hired somebody else. And I sat with that mentor for 3 years, and he taught me how to shoot and edit video, how to direct live video, all the things on the video side. Left there, went to college. While I was in college, from my dorm room, started a production company. I kind of planned on it being a bit of a side hustle while I was going to be a teacher full time. But side hustle went well, and God blessed that and showed me that it's possible to do production full time. I came from kind of a small town from Arkansas. I'm proud to be from Arkansas, but I know it's not LA or New York, and so had to kind of be shown that that was possible. But since then, I've made a career of production, and I always introduce myself that way. But I think tonight's very fitting as our audience tonight. I'm seeing y'all hop on. Our audience tonight is people maybe thinking about doing this as a career. So I'm honored to be a part of Learn AVL, and I'm excited that you've joined us tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing tonight. We're talking about kind of going from a church volunteer to a professional production person. And I'm really excited about that because here at Learn AVL, we want to equip people. We want to equip volunteers in the church. I don't take lightly that I had that mentorship at a young age. I think that's great. But not everybody gets to have that. And the older I get and the more years that pass, the more I realize how precious that was. And so that's what Michael and I set out to do in founding Learn AVL, was to bring professional production mentorship, what we each had, to not just large churches, not just churches with a lot of money, but every church. We have a vision that really no church, regardless of budget or size or any hindrance, should be without access to that. And we realize that production mentorship is very, very rare. And no matter how big your church is, it doesn't necessarily mean a production professional is going to be in the congregation and willing to serve. And so we want to take our time and give that. Philip gives his time as a production professional to come and teach. And we're growing that network of people who want to do the same. So that's a little bit about our mission and vision and what we're going to be going over tonight, which I'm very excited about. The other thing tonight, we're on YouTube live for the first time, which is really cool. These webinars that we do on a weekly basis, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night at 8. Those are for our members only, but just kind of try it out tonight as a freebie. We thought, hey, let's just put one webinar out on YouTube, and instead of posting the recording, let's just throw caution to the wind and straight up do it live. So I'm live on YouTube right now. Maybe you've stumbled across this and you're wondering what this is, or you rewound to listen to this. This is our weekly webinar we do at learnavl.com. It's a community we're building of churches who want to invest in their volunteers growing. So with that, let me share my screen and I'm going to go through this. I'm really excited about tonight. I get excited every week, but I'm excited about this one. Let me get to my presentation here. Hopefully you can see that and still hear and see me. Now's a good time. There's a chat. If you're watching on Zoom for the Learn AVL community, use the chat if you want. But any questions you have, throw them in the Q&A. That'll help me stay organized throughout. I usually have a few questions that are submitted beforehand. I didn't do that this week because I think I'm going to use all the time. In fact, I'm so nervous about going over on time tonight, which we will not go over. We will end on time because I appreciate your trust in giving us this hour. I'm going to set a clock for myself. I'm literally going to run it right here on my phone. And I'm going to try to discipline myself to keep a good pace. If there's something you want to hear more about, throw it in the Q&A. I can always spend more time at the end, but I'm going to try to keep a good pace going tonight. The only other thing I'll say is if you have any questions that aren't related to this topic at all, maybe you just happen to hop on and maybe something blew up on Sunday or something. If I have time at the end, which I'm hoping I'll have time, you're welcome to kind of stay after class and ask me anything, just like a professor staying after class for anything. It doesn't have to be just about this topic that we're doing tonight. So with that, hopefully you can see my slides and see me and hear me. And one other thing, I always think it's silly that I just do this from home. I'm a production person and I'm big on production value, but if you're ever wondering why I just do these with, I don't even have a lav. Philip at least has a lav in his, and he's got a guitar wall behind him and everything. After doing production all day, I just kind of want to chill. And so I literally do these from my MacBook Air sitting at home. I know that's really weird and maybe shocking that I'm not a power user MacBook Pro and that I'm not doing this from our studio. We've got a great studio set up with the backdrop and everything that we shoot videos on for Learn AVL. But I just want to be home and relax after a long day. So hopefully you don't mind this kind of being low tech. I certainly helps me teach. So, all right, let's go in. So right out the gate, obviously you're turned into Learn Audio Video Lighting. Normally I highlight the department we're in. This is really cross-departmental, so I highlighted the word learn. I've broken the talk down into 3 parts, and I'll have these big, bright yellow slides. But there's 20 things that I want to kind of impart on you if you're thinking about doing this. Or maybe you're even watching this, the folks who are seeing hop on here, maybe you're even watching this and you're not the person that you're thinking of this for. Maybe you have a volunteer that you think, man, I really think this young woman or this young man is really gifted in this, and I think they should pursue this. This is a way for them to kind of break that down into 3 parts and kind of a beginning, middle, and end, but also just 20 tidbits of things that I've said for years over and over and things I would want to impart in them. So I'm going to set my clock and off we go. Part 1, introspection. This is kind of a section I want to dedicate to asking yourself a few questions and making sure that this is what you want to do. I grew up Southern Baptist, and my pastor used to say about salvation, he would say, if I can talk you out of it, or if I could talk you into it, I can talk you out of it. I thought that was great. I think production, really is a calling. It's a pretty, challenging line of work, to say the least. And so before you set off on that, I think you should count the cost. The other biblical reference, I'll weave in a bunch of biblical references tonight. But, don't just build the tower. The fool who sets out to build a tower without counting the cost, and take up your cross, kind of count the cost of the journey ahead. Anyways, that may be a stretch. But, the first question, and literally you can stop watching this after this if the answer is no. First question I want to ask you before you set on a production, because you're going to be asked this all the time in production, is, are you available? Start the timer. And how available are you? Because production isn't like a typical degree program where maybe you could go get a medical degree or a law degree. And if you put your mind to it and you're smart and you study for 6 years, you can get out and have that degree, and that's where you go do those things. Production, seeing folks join on, production is a career of opportunity. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And the who people that you do know, when they call, you need to be ready to answer. You need to be able to say yes. I'm proud that I've been in production for a long time, and I look back on the blessings and the opportunities of what I've got to do. Every one of those was kind of somebody giving me a shot. And I haven't been available for every shot that's been given me. I've been given a lot of cool shots. One in particular that comes to mind that I wish I could have taken, but I couldn't. And, it's just charted my career a little bit. And so I want to ask you, are you available? If you're 22 and watching this, you're probably pretty darn available. If you're 42, you may have some young children at home. If you're 62, maybe you're more available, kind of back on the other spectrum back at the other end of the spectrum. But you definitely want to ask yourself before you set out to go from a church volunteer into full-time production, how available am I? How available am I going to be when somebody gives me a shot? And when I do see an opportunity, can I take it? Because if you can't take those and you're taking 1 out of every 4 or something like that, then it's going to take you 4 times as long to really get up to speed. And so kind of the first just challenging fork in the road I'll throw from the outset is, how available are you? How available can you make yourself? How available do you want to be to set out on this career path? That one took too long. I'm going to start going faster. Number 2. This is a phrase someone said to me a long time ago that I've always cherished. He said, consider your job paid learning. And I really love that. I think people throw around the phrase, I'm a lifelong learner all the time. But in production, you really have to be a lifelong learner. You can't stop learning. Production's technology-based, it's fast-moving, and you never want to stop learning. I think often in production, it's easy to get complacent a little bit. Maybe you're just a church volunteer and you think, well, I already know how to do ProPresenter, and so I'm here, I've arrived, I'm done. But that's not the case. Every single day is an opportunity to learn. And the first, few gigs that you could get on, which I'll talk about later, are going to be, not glamorous. And you may be doing something as simple as being a hand pushing cases or running house lights for a theater or something. Don't dismiss those and become complacent. Every project is an opportunity. Every day can be paid learning. And I'm a big believer that anyone can learn anything at any time if they're willing, if they're paying attention, if they want to. And so just like you ask yourself, how available am I? Do I want this? Ask yourself, how bad do I want this? Am I ready to be a paid learner? There's no textbook or degree program for production. There's some great schools out there. And we even had an apprenticeship program at work for a while. I hope someday to bring that back. But there is nothing that will spoon feed you this. You're going to have your ears open and your eyes open to be ready to learn when the opportunity presents itself. So consider your job paid learning. Make sure you have that mindset as you're introspectively considering going down this path. That's the second point. Here's the third point. You're going to need to be comfortable in the environment. There's a couple of facets and kind of sides of this Rubik's Cube. I'd like to just point out it's a dark environment. Literally, not a lot of lights on, and people typically wearing black. Almost got some looks today for wearing an olive green shirt instead of a black. I've got black on underneath. But I'm not going to say it's a rough environment, but it's not a doctor's office, and you want to be comfortable in that environment. There's kind of levels of kind of from grungy and really down and dirty, maybe touring or rock and roll and things like that, up to just really polished, maybe political work or something like that. But are you comfortable in that environment? Are you comfortable in an environment where it's very high stress? Do you have a medical issue with stress or anxiety or something? Are you okay with that level of pressure? We do show business and production for the thrill of it. I love when a show ends or even a church service ends, the relief and the teamwork, the camaraderie feeling that we get from saying, we did it. But that good feeling, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That good feeling comes because you just went through a valley together. You just fought in the trenches together. The troops celebrated at the end of World War I because they fought in the trenches. They didn't celebrate because they had a lollipop birthday party for a toddler. This is a hard work environment. And so if you're ready for hard work, you get the celebration at the end. And I think I had one more in this section, and then I'll move on. I want you to think before you go down this, that it's definitely going to be a multi-year commitment. This sounds silly. Of course it is. You're thinking of a career in production, but I get to talk to a lot of young people. I encourage young people to reach out and come by the shop, and often they do. And they seem to be looking for something they can maybe do for a season. And production is it's a slow learning curve. I think it takes a little bit of time. It takes some osmosis. It takes being in the environment and soaking it up like a sponge. Just like bringing a fish home from the pet store. You put the bag, I don't know if you ever had fish. Hopefully you can go with me on this. You bring a fish home from the pet store in the bag, you set the bag in your aquarium, you let the water kind of equalize before you just let that fish out. If you just dump the fish in your aquarium, cold or hot, it's going to shock it. Same thing's true in production. It's a multi-year commitment. You've really got to decide, I'm going to really kind of marinate and set in this for a long time for that water, what I was in and what I'm joining to become one. And it's not something that you can maybe do for a summer. I got a lot of people say it'd be a great summer job or something. I think it's a very big mistake. By the end of the summer, you've just started to get some traction and it's over. Or people say maybe it's something they do for a year or two, maybe in between high school and college or something. I also think that's a mistake. You're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. You're going to be kind of the grunt, working your way up. And about the time you get up a little bit, you're going to be gone. So I think it's something that you need to say. This is a multi-year commitment. And I'll reiterate my earlier point, and we'll move on to section 2. It's not a multi-year commitment to learning and then you arrive. It's a commitment to being a lifelong learner. And this is a multi-year commitment to saying you're not really going to get anywhere for a few years. And so you've got to make sure that that's okay, even financially. You got to count the cost to say, okay, financially, can we do this? What does this look like? I'm fortunate that I got plugged into production at 12 years old and started the company while I was in college in my dorm room. Talk about low overhead. I'm on scholarship, for crying out loud. The dorm room, the overhead's low. That I don't have a family to feed. I've got 2 young boys now. This would be a terrible time for me to switch that career path. But perhaps you're in a different stage of life, or perhaps you've saved up and you're ready for that. But I just think it's important to realize it's a multi-year commitment. It's not something that you're going to spin up in a month and then run with it. I think that's it for section 1. Great. Section 2, hopefully you're still with me. Say hello in the chat if you want. Say hi to each other for the members that are on here. Hopefully you've seen that chat feature. You can ask questions in the Q&A. And I think some people are watching on YouTube, which is really neat. Trying YouTube for the first time tonight to see if we like that, maybe from time to time as a treat out to the public. So part two, preparing. So if part one was kind of counting the cost and making sure that you've really thought this through and kind of gotten that decision made, you've decided you do want to pursue production, congratulations. Haven't been able to talk you out of it, so that means you must really like it. I used to say to people, especially young people who'd come in who'd kind of have this glitter dream of how glamorous this could be. I'd ask them, you ever pushed a road case at 2 a.m. in the rain through the mud, and after working a 20-hour day? And then when you woke up the next morning, did you say, man, I can't wait to do that again? Because if you did, that's the same feeling I get. And there's something wrong with me. And so if you felt that, there's probably something wrong with you too. And this is exactly where you need to be. There's something wrong with you and me. And that means we're called to production. What's wrong with us is we're born and for this. But after a situation like that, you wake up and say, my goodness, what have I done? Then it's not for you. They told me the same thing when I was in college. I was studying to be a teacher. And they said, if unless you just love children and love and passionate about seeing the light bulb go off, this is not for you. And I agree, teaching is very difficult. I like teaching y'all, but children is a different story. So this is kind of part two. And I told you earlier, I wove a little more Bible into this tonight. Usually we don't get super spiritual on these, but I didn't even mean to. It's just as I was preparing this, I felt kind of compelled. About an hour ago, I started seeing the parallels to scripture. So I plugged in some scripture into this, and hopefully it's not too much of a stretch. But first thing I'll say, when you're starting to prepare to kind of go into production and starting to think about what this could mean for you, is that diversity matters. And what I mean by this is get out of your church. A lot of folks who maybe you're watching this and say, I'm a church volunteer, I'd love to be a full-time production person. If I would just ask them, well, what type of environments have you seen? Where have you seen production play out? Perhaps they've been in maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 churches. That's only 1 or 2 or 3 rooms. You've really only seen 1 or 2 or 3 shows, because at church, we really do the same kind of format every week. It's very, very structured, And so I would say diversity matters. I would get out of the church. I'd get out of your church. Go to even more churches, other churches visiting, but also, go to a theater or something. This verse is the biggest stretch of all of them, but is when Jesus was young and his parents were looking for him and they found him in the temple. And he said, well, didn't you think I'd be in the temple? Of course, that's where I am. I'm telling you, get out of the temple, get out of the temple, get out of your church and go see different environments, because that diversity matters. You're going to want to be able to kind of have seen different things and to be able to picture different environments and recall things. It's amazing how many church people I talk to, and they've never looked at the speakers. They've never really looked at the loudspeakers in their church. They've never thought about where they're hung or why they're hung there. Or they never really heard a different PA. They always think that things around 2K are bitey and loud. And it's like, well, that's the speaker that's installed there. It's not normal everywhere. It's just the environment that you're in. So the diversity of what you've seen with your eyes and heard with your ears matters. And I really want you to get out of the 4 walls of your church, still serve there regularly, but get out and see other environments. So point number 1, diversity matters. I love this. My wife had this verse on her in her room at her house growing up. I saw it after we got married. I saw it on the wall. It just really spoke to me. James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak. And then the rest of the verse, of course, slow to become angry. I want to encourage you in production to be very quick to listen, very slow to speak. It's amazing if you're put around great people on some great crews. And Philip even mentioned this. He had a great presentation 2 weeks ago on kind of just what he's learned over the years, kind of a general presentation for him. And, he gave a lot of credit to, he's been on crews and run crews. He's been the executive producer with great, excellent professionals. And it's amazing what you can learn, but you're there to learn from them. They're not there to learn from you. And so you need to keep your mouth shut and your ears open and listen to them. When I was growing up, I used to say, can I just sit here if I don't say anything, if I'm just quiet, can I sit here and be with you? And one time somebody said, well, you don't have to be quiet. You can absolutely open your mouth, but only if you have a good question. So you can talk all you want, as long as what you're saying is you're asking good questions. I thought that was really good. So I think in production, a lot of times maybe we have seen a thing or two and we feel the need to let everybody know it. And that's not good. No one needs that. Be quick to listen, open your ears, and slow to speak, and absorb the knowledge and the wealth of information from those around you. Ask why questions. Why is that here? Why is this here? Why do you do it that way? Why did you decide that? And be very quick to listen. A lot of what I've learned in my career, again, as I said earlier, there's no textbook for this. It wasn't spoon-fed to me. I've been on great crews, and unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people kind of waste that opportunity to say, "Hey, I was with this incredible A1 last week, and I was there for 2 days or whatever. And what'd you learn?" And then maybe they learned like one thing or something. It's like, man, if you're with that person, I hope you're asking good questions, and I hope you're really, really listening. Even when I just drop by front of house on my way out the door at a concert or something like that, if I'm going to be with somebody for 3 minutes, I want to ask them, "Hey, what'd you think of this? And why'd you do that there? And how did this go for you tonight?" And I just, how quickly can I ask a question, and how long can I keep my ears open? So I want to really encourage you, as you start to get in production environments outside of your church, be quick to listen, slow to speak. And thanks for the book of James for that reference. I love this. If you're going into production, you're really there to serve, not to be served. I think we all know Mark 10:45, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and then to give his life as a ransom for many. I love that verse. And I think we can follow Christ's lead in that production is really about being a servant. Even at work, our company, the name, it means serve. That's what we are here to be. We don't sign up for production to be on stage. We sign up for production to support those who are on stage. That's what I love about church, is we're amplifying the gospel. We're literally putting a megaphone to the saving grace of the world. Well, in production, that's what we're doing. We're amplifying people. We're lighting people up. We're shooting people up in IMAG onto screens. And so we're not there. It's not about us. We're not there to be served. Production people lose this all the time. It's amazing as we get more sophisticated on larger shows, and we get kind of further along in our career, all of a sudden we turn into divas, and there's really only one diva, and that's the person front and center stage. And there's really not room for two sheriffs in that town. And so I want to encourage you, whether it's your first day in production or your 20th year in production, to keep Jesus's example in mind, that you're not there to ask, "Where's my catering? Where's the food? Where's lunch?" You're not there to say, "I can't believe we're dealing with XYZ." You're there to serve. And I view it that way. Whether I'm a hand and just pushing cases on a show, or I'm in charge. I tell you a little secret: as you get to be in charge, you're serving more than any other time before. You're serving everyone who's on your team, who you're responsible for. So I want to encourage you to keep in mind, and write this on the wall in your closet or something as you're getting dressed 20 years from now, to remember that you're not here to be served. You're here to serve. Okay, I'm watching the time. I think I need to pick it up just a little bit, but we're doing okay. Also want to encourage you, don't let others look down on you because of your age, but instead be an example in the way that you act. I think the rest of the verse, 1 Timothy 4:12, is the way that you act and speak and carry yourself. It's that verse is, do not let others look down on you because of your age. He's talking to young people. He's encouraging him to, just because you're young, don't let people look down on your age. How I like to kind of pivot that here is, don't let others look down on you because you're green, because you're new. There were just years and years and years, that not days, not weeks, not months, but years and years and years where I was nobody on the crew. Still feel like nobody a lot of times, and nobody on the crew. And I did not allow that kind of self-consciousness to become an external label. I was not going to allow that to make me nobody in everybody's eyes. It doesn't make me a diva. What I mean here is, it made me an example. I think of like Tim Tebow. If you follow Tim Tebow at all or keep up with him, off the field now, he's an example. He carries himself differently. He knows he's a son of the king of the world, and he acts like it. And so I remember when I was like camera 3, the third camera operator that they didn't want to call, but they had to because the client added a third camera. Nobody. just because I was young and green and had no status and barely made it on that crew. I was professional and I was well spoken, and I tucked my shirt in, and I was an example. When everybody else in the crew was swearing and griping, I was smiling and running past them. When everybody else in the crew was standing around because we're waiting on the last case for the truck, I was running back into the venue to find that case and help whoever it is that's in there alone get going. So I want to encourage you, just because you're new doesn't mean that you're less than anyone. In fact, it gives you more latitude and more mental capacity to then apply yourself further and to be an example of excellence, to be an example of what it means to be called to something higher. See the purpose in what you're doing. See that you were born to do production, like we've already talked about earlier. I was born for this, and I'm honoring the Creator who made me. Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work heartily as if for the Lord. It's Him you're serving and not men. I'm acting like that when I'm on a crew, especially when I was young. I kind of worry, and as I think about, has that faded in time over years with me? But when I was young, I was setting an example to others, where I may not be the director, I may not be anybody, but I'm going to be an example of kind of the star student, front row student of what a good attitude looks like. Anyways, I think you get the point. I'll keep moving. But as you're thinking about getting into production, you need to make sure you're committed to working in the world. I talked earlier about making sure you're ready for the environment, but this verse, Luke 5:31, that's Jesus saying, the sick are the ones who need a doctor. I'm not here for the well, I'm here for the sick. It's the sick who need a doctor. I'm very committed to working in the world. I've had multiple opportunities to be on staff at different churches. I love the church. I love the Big C church. All of us in this together, serving the bride. But I'm called and committed. I want to be in the world, not of the world, or whatever the phrase is, the overused Christian phrase. But I'm very committed that I want to be out in the world, just as Jesus was. I don't want to be in a holy huddle. I don't want to live inside the four walls of a church and for all my professional 40 hours a week or more than 40 hours a week to be spent with other Christians. I want to be forced to be out with a client who's not a believer. I want to be out with a freelancer who's not a believer, a crew member, anyone. I'd much rather be there on a Tuesday than in my church. And I love my church. I love the church. I love serving the church. I love helping the church, just like this with Learn AVL. But I know that the majority of my time, I don't want to be in those four walls. And I was even interviewing a person a few weeks ago and kind of asking about that. Are you ready to be outside of the church? Do you see your mission and vision and purpose? And are you called to be outside of those walls and serving in this way? Because at the church, inside of those four walls, we're very clear. If we're volunteering at a church, if you're a volunteer watching this, why you're serving on Sunday. It's very, very clear. We're all in this together, and we have that vision. If you don't have that for yourself, you're going to be kind of wondering and thirsty for that vision that you had back at the church of why you're doing it. And so definitely want to encourage you to make sure you're focused on being committed to working in the world. I believe that Jesus was, and I believe that's who I'm following and following this example. And I'm open tomorrow. If he wakes me up tomorrow and says, you're supposed to be on staff at a church, I will say, yes, sir. And I can't wait. But as of right now, the last I heard from him, the clearest I've ever heard from him, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I want to make sure that you're on that path as well, and that you see that your work matters outside the four walls of the church. Moving right along here. This shouldn't take long. This is not a get rich quick scheme. Matthew 8:20. What even was that? Not a get rich quick scheme. I don't remember. I don't have that reference memorized. I've been on a streak with the other ones, and I don't have notes. If you haven't noticed on this, I won't Google it. But you're not going to make a ton of. Oh, 8:20. I think that's no. I don't remember what that was. I'm sorry. But this is not this is not exactly becoming a pharmacist or something like that. And so I mentioned earlier, make sure that you're prepared where you are in your life, but it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a lot of hard work. So anyways, I'll move on. I don't want to be a downer there, but I love production. Been in it for a long time, but I'm not in it to become a billionaire. That's for dang sure. And lastly, it's physically demanding. And I don't remember what this reference is either. Darn it. I'm running drama references. I'm sorry. It's risky to just put the passages in there like that, but it's physically demanding. It's very physically demanding. My mind is just racing what that verse is. One of y'all's probably Googling that right now and then wondering, how in the world was this relevant? Because I almost have to tie it together because some of these are a bit of a stretch. But it's very physically demanding. And you want to make sure you're ready for that, that you're ready to push cases and hang a PA and get up on a catwalk. And, there's a lot to it. If you can't tell the theme tonight, I'm almost practically trying to talk you out of it. But what I'm really trying to do is just help you count the cost and then make a good decision. I counted all these costs, decided, and haven't looked back, and still happy to do it. Worked my butt off today in the production industry and can't wait for tomorrow. So just keep in mind, it's physically demanding. I thought that was it. So that's the end of section 2, which is terrific. We are on section 3. We are looking good on time. I'm proud of myself. I've kept a pretty good pace. Now's a good time to say, if you do have any questions, if there's something that you want to hear more about, throw it in the Q&A. A lot of what we talked about up until this point is very high level stuff. So I don't think you have any boiling questions about any of that, but maybe you had a question coming into this around, well, hey, what about this? Or hey, what about that? Throw it in the Q&A. I'll get to all those at the end. This third section is gonna be a lot more actionable. And so you may have something coming out of this. And then as we always do at the end of the night, after I've answered the questions from this, then I'll hang out after class to answer any questions from this past Sunday, or whatever's on your mind. So yeah. Oh, and if you're watching on YouTube, you don't have that feature, and I don't think I can see it. You can try. There's something in the YouTube tool, but I don't know if I'll be able to see it or the shot. All right. So section 3, action items. Again, I had 20 points for tonight. I think there's maybe like 6 in this. This is where I really want to send you out to go fit. You just like literally, these are literal things you need to go do. So step 1, if you really are serious about this, we can talk about the first section, getting your head right. Section 2, kind of preparing. Section 3, if you really say, okay, tomorrow I want to do this. Tomorrow, I want you to get out from behind the console. On Sunday, I really want you to get out from behind the lighting desk or audio desk or the video switch or whatever it is. And I want you to really start physically walking the space that you are familiar with. I encouraged you earlier to get into other churches, get into theaters, get into other venues and environments. But in your environment, step 1 of action items here in order, get out from behind your console, start to walk around the space, start to ask questions, even on paper. Get yourself a little spiral notebook. I keep a spiral notebook in my backpack. Start to jot down questions. Why is the PA here? Why did we hang the lights here? What models of lights are those? How did we determine how many lights we needed? Start to ask those questions. Give yourself questions. You're not going to see those things from behind the console. A career in production is a lot more than operating a lighting desk or an audio desk or a video desk. And I don't think you need to spend hardly any time on YouTube on day 1 watching a deeper video about how a compressor works or something like that. I think you need to start a lot bigger picture, and bigger picture comes from getting out from behind the console. The console's 1% of the room. Walk the other 99%, 1% at a time. Get backstage, look up, get up there if you can get up there on a lift or something, and start to learn what's out there and start to ask yourself these good Socratic questions around what you're seeing. Step 1, action items, get out from behind the dang console ASAP. Don't be a console queen, as Michael Curtis calls it. Step 2, if you're physically, these are literal things. Once you're on site, let's say you get on site, and I'm going to talk about how to get on site in a minute. Let's say you get on site, you get on your first show. Maybe the Newsboys comes through town or something like that. Maybe there's a tour coming through your church. I want you to literally take things out of people's hands. This is a little bit forward of me to say this, but this is how I started doing things. I had a great mentor. I loved my mentor from 12 to 15. But not everybody is a great teacher, and not everybody is a great delegator. Sometimes you're one, but not the other. And he was a great teacher. But what I would do, even as a 12-year-old, is I would realize, like, hey, when he's talking, we're not getting anything done. And I want him to talk more. And so if, session after session, we'd be hanging out on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night or whatever. This isn't sustainable. And he's going to be up here all night if every hour that I'm here, he's teaching me and we're not getting anything done. And I want him to always be encouraged to teach me. So if he's rolling a cable And I think that if I can roll that cable instead, that's something I can do. Maybe he could do something else. Maybe we'd get done faster. And maybe if we got done faster, we could sit down at the console and we could talk, or we could sit on the edge of the stage and talk. I was always trying to figure out, what is it that this person, this teacher, this mentor, this professional that I'm following, what is it that they're doing that is not something that only they can do, something that I could do? It usually is rolling a cable. That's about all I could do. Take that cable out of their hand. I want you to do this when you get on site. I've been around a lot of very talented professionals. And if they're doing all the work and you're just kind of being there as a gnat, and you're just kind of nagging them with questions, that's not helpful. You're slowing them down. You're going to make them stay late. They want to be home with their wife and kids. So take things out of their hands politely, graciously. Don't be foolish about how you do that, obviously. But if you see we're about to roll 10 cables and they're rolling one, say, let me roll that one and you grab the next one. Or, if they're running a cable, it's even better on setup. If they're running a cable and they just ran a second one in the same way and they're about to run a third one, say, well, let me run the second one, you run the third one, and start to play leapfrog with them on tasks. A lot of production people are not used to managing people, they're not used to delegating. And so they're not used to having a helper. We're used to kind of working alone. It's not a sad thing, but we're just used to not having help in production. We're used to doing it ourselves. And so if you're going to be their helper, and don't wait for them to give it to you. You take it from them. I hope that makes sense. I hope you can do that in a respectful, kind of tactful way. So there's that. I'll keep moving. Oh my goodness. Point number 3. Once you do get something where this mentor or this production professional for the day that you're shadowing, or whoever it is, once they do give you something to do, I hope you give it some excellence. I mean, real excellence in the details. My favorite example, we had an intern at work years ago. It turned out to be a great tech. He's a great guy. It's a great example. This is a kid. I'll just tell you a story real quick. He was in high school. He got to learn a little bit about sound at school, thought it was cool, asked his dad, do you know anybody who does this professionally? His dad referred him to a large corporation in town who has an auditorium. The kid went up there, asked the guy who runs that auditorium professionally, what could I do to get more experience? That guy said, you could call this production company in town. That's us. That's our company. Maybe call them. He showed up at our shop, which is what I'm going to tell you in a minute. Said, well, I'll do anything. What do I need to do? We gave him an internship. And then here's this story. So we're on a show. It's one of his first shows. He couldn't do much. He's new. He's not helpful yet. He doesn't know a whole lot. And he had been kind of fumbling around, maybe trying this, maybe trying that. And he kept finishing a task, and then he'd be like, what can I do next? Which is great, finish a task and say, what can I do next? But there was just kind of only so much stuff to do. We were kind of getting to the end of the setup. And the tech who he was following around said, well, we just ran all these cables from the stage all the way to the back of the room, and it runs right past these doorways. And so all those doorways, we need to tape the cables down. So I guess tape those cables down real well. And it's going to be a while. I'm going to be tied up for the next hour. So just, do that and then hang out. Well, this kid, instead of spending 10 minutes doing it and 50 minutes on Facebook, he spent 59 minutes doing it. I wish I had pulled the photo. I'm sorry. You would just be so proud of him like I was. I literally took a picture of it. This is his first day second day on the job. Every one of these cables, when you're running cables, they get all kind of intertwined all over each other. They don't necessarily lay flat. They were all kind of like this and running through the back of the room. Every time it crossed a doorway, he took all those cables and he fanned them out like a comb. He got them all like this, and then he put them together like this, and he taped them perfectly flat at every door. He probably spent 20 minutes on three doorways an hour. The picture, though, when the client walked in, they see this you barely saw it. You'd have to look at it, but these cables are just so OCD. They're so excellent. That's somebody who says, you know what? All I've got is 2 pennies, but I'm going to give it. That's somebody who says, I can't offer much, but here it is. I'm a little drummer boy. It's a fictitious story. It's not real in the Bible, but I'll play my song for you. Ba-rum-pa-bum-bum. That's all I can do. I don't have big gifts to give you, but I will give you what I have, and I will do it with excellence. So I want to encourage you to give excellence and to look for details and ways to do that. I've got stories from my career of doing that. I don't want to talk about me anymore. That guy embodied that really well. I'm really proud of him and where he is today. On staff at a church full-time today. And that was only 3 or 4 years ago. He went from a high school kid who thought he might be interested to an intern to on staff part-time to on staff full-time to now he is the only tech director at a very large church. And he's 24, I think. But he gave this excellence, and it caught my eye, and it caught his tech's eye, and it caught that production manager's eye, it caught that client's eye. This is somebody who cares, who's been given a little, but he's going to give a lot. One more soapbox on this before I go. That's a Bible verse. That's a biblical principle. I think it's like to whom I entrust a little, if they're faithful, what I entrust them, then I'm going to entrust in them a lot. It's a big misquote, I'm sure, but in your career, I don't care if you're a banker in production, but in production, whatever you're given, give it 110%. My goodness. And I don't care if it's camera 3 on a 30-person crew and you're nobody, or if you're a 1-person crew and you're DJing a wedding at a at a retirement home. I mean, I'm trying to think of like there's just the worst gig or just the goofiest, silly gig where you're the only person there. And give it 110% and show that client, that person, whoever gave you that opportunity, the Lord, show them I'm going to be faithful with a little, and so I can be trusted with more. That's how you're elevated. The last shall be first. That's how you're kind of raised up, instead of coming in and saying, I'm somebody, I'm a diva. I'm faithful with what I've been given. So again, a lot more biblical principles tonight than normal, but it's coming out of me. It just seems fitting. Surely I don't need to explain this much, but we had a great show last week, a great crew, and people weren't early. We get complacent, and unfortunately, kind of the young bucks, the new folks, were the ones who kept showing up on time. You don't need to be on time. You need to be early. You need to remember that you're green and you don't know anything yet. And the time to learn is not in the heat of the moment. The time to learn is downtime. And so get there early, walk around. If somebody else is there early, ask them a good question. Be early. My goodness. Don't be on time. It's almost disrespectful. And it's certainly disrespectful to be late. Some of the older folks who get a little complacent maybe are late from time to time. They kind of lose that fervor. Don't do that. So be early. Don't need to beat a dead horse there. And lastly, stay late for the same reasons. When we had an apprenticeship program, or I won't do the apprenticeship example, I'll do a hand. So in the industry, the entryway in, and I'm going to talk about this, I think, on the next slide or in a second. But entryway in is to go be a hand, a stage hand, loading in a show or loading out a show. I see so many hands. They'll show up for a load in. It's a 10-hour show day for the crew. It's a 4-hour load in, and they're there for a 4-hour minimum. That's their call. So they're called in for a 4-hour minimum. The 4-hour mark, when the PM says, okay, that's all we needed from you, thanks, they're the first to their car. Stay late, darn it. Stay after. Hang out. Ask permission, but pretty sure I can't think of very many shows that are so high profile that you can't have an extra guy sitting around at front of house or backstage or something. Stay after. Especially if they're going into rehearsals or something like that. My goodness, that's when you learn. Hopefully that's so obvious, but man, just remind yourself of that. Like, okay, I'm here for 4 hours. I'm going to be there 20 minutes early and stay 30 minutes late. My goodness. And I thought this was my next point. Look the part plus 10%. If you show up to be a hand, tell you what, hands are probably going to show up in like just a black t-shirt and cargo shorts or something. That's great. At least look that part. At least wear a black t-shirt and cargo shorts and tennis shoes. At least look the part. My goodness, don't show up in yellow, or something like that. Just be sharp and dark. Look, be blacked out, look the production part. But give it an extra 10%. Be the sharpest looking hand there. If you're a tech, be the sharpest looking tech there. If you're the PM, be a little bit sharper than maybe they thought the production manager would be. I think that's general career advice. Don't dress for the job you've got, dress for the job you want or something like that. Level up a little bit. That way, if you do stick around after load in, you look like you're part of the crew instead of cargo shorts. Maybe wear pants or something, do something that looks a little sharper. Do that extra 10%. Because then when the PM or somebody does say, hey, camera 3 has got pneumonia, can you jump on camera 3? You look like you could jump on camera 3 and you're not going to embarrass yourself or embarrass somebody else. So, be sharp, be dark, wear black, but go an extra 10%. Go to the shop. couple ways I could talk about this, and I'm really watching the time. I want to start to wrap up here, so I'll try to go fast. But I literally want you to go, literally, I want you to go to the shop of the production company that you can find in town, wherever your town is. I don't care if you're in the middle of nowhere, Montana, middle of nowhere, Arkansas, somewhere there is a production company within driving distance of you. I want you to go to their shop. You can decide how you do that if you show up unannounced or email them or call them, whatever, but I want you to go to the shop. I encourage anyone who's listening to this, and I encourage young people all the time, anybody, not just young people, hey, come by the shop sometime. Come by for 15 minutes. I'd love to show you around. Let's walk the shop together. Check it out. Show that you're interested. Show that production company you're passionate. You want to be in this. And the same thing goes for maybe after a show. Hey, after the show, the driver's going to have to go back to the shop and unload. Well, darn it, go with him. Go with him. Go to the shop. Take a look around. Maybe go hang out at the shop sometime. Get their permission. Hey, can I come by and pop open a console sometime and mess with it? Or can I pop open a mover and maybe try to program it or something? Go to the dadgum shop. Don't wait until you're on shows. Shows are very precious moments. Maybe do 40 or 50 shows a year. That means there's 300 other days with nothing going on. Go to the shop. My goodness. So I encourage you to literally come to our shop. Stop by, but go to other production company shop too. Go to the shop. My gosh. Starting to round it out here, get on labor lists. So if you're currently a volunteer, you want to go professional, how do you start? You start as a hand, and you can kind of put the word out that you want to be a hand. Or most towns have a labor agency. Sometimes it's a union. And that's when, if Kenny Chesney rolls into town with 18 semis and they need 60 hands for 4 hours at 6 a.m. on a Friday morning to get him loaded into the arena for his tour. If they need 60 people, you want to be on that list. And if you can get on that list, you want to tell them respectfully, you don't want to cut in front of the people who've been there for 20 years, but you want to tell them like, hey, I'll be your pinch hitter. I'll be whatever, because point number 1 out of 20, 30 minutes ago, I'm available, very available. I'd love to be available for you. When you're in a pinch, let me know. And then once they see you, the example earlier, don't let them look down on you because you're green, but be an example. Once they see what a good example you are, you'll be cruising. If you actually follow and listen to anything I said and actually implement this stuff, you'll be cruising and doing quite well. You'll quickly be in the 90th percentile. Almost done here. This is my last point. And I used to not say this. So I added this yesterday. And let me be careful about how I advise this. But sometimes people say when they're getting started in photography or graphic design or anything, hey, should I work for free, or how should I handle that? I really want to get going. I always said no. I think a worker's worth his wages. There's another Bible verse. I just, as a business owner, I never wanted to be this another Bible verse. I think it's a proverb, but the owner of the vineyard and the laborers are calling out and screaming his name from the wages that he has withheld from them. I never want to be somebody who's asking a bunch of people to work for free. But my eyes were changed around that in the past year a little bit. It's been a tough year. But we had a series of shows, and there was a young man who'd shown up at the shop, introduced himself. He sent an email in online to us as a production company, said he wanted to hang out, wanted to come by and see the place. And he really wanted to do live music for bands. And I said, well, congratulations. That's probably the hardest job. That's what we all want to do. We all want to mix a band. That's great. How about doing what I said earlier? How about being the DJ at a wedding at a retirement community or something? That's the job I need you to do if you're new. He said, I really want to. And I said, well, kind of get in line. It's going to be tough. And that's when he played the card. I'd do it for free. I would literally show up this summer and do those gigs for free. And I'm not even going to ask to mix. I would literally show up and push the cases and not even be a member of the crew. There's another Bible verse. I'd rather be a gatekeeper in the house of the Lord than anything anywhere else or something. I don't know. But that's where the song "Better Is One Day" comes from. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather be a gatekeeper in the house of the Lord. He said, I'd rather be there and be a nobody. Literally, person number 0 on the crew. It's a 5-person crew, and I'm not the 6th person. I'm the 0 person, nobody. And I said, if you want that bad, sure, show up. I'm not going to take your spot from, I'm not going to take a spot from somebody else. We're not going to save money. I'm still going to pay everybody who's supposed to pay on the show, but you can show up, be an extra person. And my goodness, that kid sweat and worked hard, had the best attitude, and worked his butt off all summer. And, this summer, if we get to do those shows again, I'm giving him that spot on the crew. He's more qualified for anybody else at this point. He's seen that show happen so many times. He knows exactly what it is. He has the best attitude. So he earned that. So I don't think you should immediately just start offering your services for free and doing everything for free. I don't think that's right. I think you deserve to get paid. But if there's something where this is the exact type of show that you want to be doing, or this is the exact seat that you want to be in. Maybe you say, I love fill in the blank. I love at church. I love being camera one. I love following the pastor. I love the responsibility of being the only camera that's live during the message. I love being camera one. And maybe the only gigs you can get at first are kind of being a hand. But maybe the local baseball field, minor league baseball field or something, maybe they have a couple cameras at the IMAG, and you want to walk in there and say, hey, I'd work for minimum wage, whatever, running cables for you, whatever. Or if you'd let me be camera one, I'd do it for free. And I'm not crazy. I do camera one at my church. I've been doing it at my church for 5 years straight. I'm really good at camera one, and I'd love to prove it to you. I would literally do camera one for free, or do anything else to get paid. That's a position of maybe you're passionate about live music, like this young man was, and he says, I want to be on this show. I don't care what I do. Maybe he's saying passionate about this position. I would encourage you kind of delicately to be willing to maybe do something like that for free a few times. Build your career in that way with a real strong foot in the door. That's it for my slides. I haven't seen any questions. I'll linger for just a minute. The Q&A thing hasn't lit up. I'll stop sharing my slides and just go back to full screen camera. It's always hard to find this button. There it is. So let me get out of my slides. It's just me. Right. Again, I'll pause for just a second for any questions about this. And then, of course, I'm happy to stay on afterwards for any other questions. I've been live tonight to YouTube, which is cool. I might pull that down. I might keep that up. We'll see. If I keep it up, feel free to share it with folks who maybe are in a similar boat as you, or maybe you're watching this webinar on their behalf, somebody who you think would be great as a production professional. Couple of housekeeping things. Well, just wait a few more minutes for any more Q&A. I'm assuming none, which is fine. I do this webinar every Tuesday at 8 p.m. We're doing another one next week. Michael and Philip also do their webinars on weeknights at 8 p.m. Philip is Mondays, Michael's are Wednesdays. We all try to do cross-departmental things. We all try to do audio, video, lighting in general. This has definitely been a general one tonight. Philip and Michael are strongest in audio, so they do a lot of audio. But keep an eye out. On Sunday morning, Michael tries to send out an email with what the topics will be for the week. Try to keep an eye out to register for one of those. More than registering for a webinar, though, get on the dang forum. We really want to see the forum light up. We want to see you asking good questions, helping each other with your questions. So I encourage you to hop on the forum and just, even if you just talk about, here's how Sunday went, just share how Sunday went. Maybe some other people feel the same way. We want to see those forums light up more than we want to just lecture to you. If you do miss something like this, we post the previous recordings, and you're welcome to watch those. I watched Philip's from 2 weeks ago, loved it. So I often watch the recordings. You're welcome to do that. And with that, I guess I'll close this out. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I'll be back next week, same time, same place, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Central.